Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, our guest is Susie Hayes. Susie is a psychotherapist, a coach, an author, hypnotist, and speaker. I think she does a little bit of everything, actually. And she is also the CEO, founder of Freed from Stuck. Susie, welcome to our show. Thank you for being here. Tell us more, please, about Freed from Stuck.
Thank you so much. It truly is an honor, and I am excited about the conversation we're going to have today because I think it is so needed. Freed from Stuck really is the title of my book that came into being when someone asked me, so what do you do? And in the conversation, as we were talking, and this was actually the man who was talking with me about publishing, as we were talking, it occurred to me that that is exactly what I do. In all of my work, I'm here to help people become freed from stuck. So I say to people that I help people become freed from stuck by discovering internal resources they never knew they had in order to create what they never knew they could.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And the FREED is actually an acronym, F-R-E-E-D, for a metaphor of crossing the bridge. I just happen to have a copy of my book here.
I hope that you will send me a copy. Would that be too bold of me to ask for?
Not at all. I would be honored to do that. And it's Freed from Stuck, Dare to Cross the Bridge Beyond Grief, Trauma, and Self-Sabotage to Discovering Lasting Change Now.
Beautiful.
And
I will add that to our show notes for people to purchase if they're interested. Yeah.
Wonderful. So the acronym is about F-R-E-E-D, which is about, F is for face the bridge, which is really identifying where our real pain point is. Recognizing the bridge is about creating a new vision, a destination, a discovery of where we really want to live and how we want our life to be in relationship with that pain. The E is for embrace the bridge, which is about owning and working through and healing in the process. Exit the bridge is really about an element that we often don't talk about in being free from stuck, but part of the exit is the grieving process in letting go of what is no longer serving us and allowing the new to come in. And then D is arriving at the destination, which is really the discovery of our destiny through this experience. There's also an element of that has to do with how do we build upon that and not go backwards, and anticipating the next bridge that will be ahead of us.
Oh, sounds quite lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm guessing there's some stories on how you ended up writing this book, probably both personally and professionally. Is there anything about your personal journey that you'd be willing to share with our audience?
Absolutely. I honestly believe, Karen, that I don't think that there is a person on this planet that hasn't experienced trauma at some level. And we experience varying degrees of trauma all of the time. And as you know, we can have direct experiences of trauma. We can have secondary experiences of trauma. And certainly we've gone through a really challenging time during the last years. And there are many people who are recovering. They're wanting to find their way. And for me, I would say there were probably several significant points of trauma. I was raised by a mother who was abusive, who could be very loving at times, but then could become unexpectedly out of control, which obviously is very traumatic because you're not quite sure when that might happen. And I spent many years in therapy, healing from the experiences in relationship with her. I also, in 2008, my husband was diagnosed with a rare genetic disease called CADASIL, which is a progressive dementia. And we were at a place in our life where like everything was going amazingly wonderful. And we were actually anticipating moving from Colorado to Florida. You can tell I like the beach, right? And so we were very excited about the future. And he was in this car accident and they realized that he had had a blackout, and that's when he was diagnosed with this condition. And so he could no longer work. He could no longer drive. I was left then to be responsible for his care and for our household and our well-being moving forward. And then about 2 years later, I unexpectedly fell down some stairs and had 2 herniated discs and pretty unexpected trauma in that. So it actually took me a while in this last decade. And by the way, my husband passed in December.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And thank you. And it was sad, but also he was set free from his suffering. And but I didn't really realize even till after he had passed, Karen, the level of trauma and then sort of prolonged pain in the shroud of that experience that had hung over me. And I did well in terms of being able to show up and do my work, but my bandwidth of energy was really diminished. Like I had to be really careful about how I took care of myself, where I expended my energy. So it was really a challenging time. And I didn't even as a professional, I didn't recognize the degree of trauma that I had been experiencing. So those are, I guess you'd call them the high points, but really the low points of trauma in my life.
Yeah, so you get it. You get what
I totally get it.
You get it, how it feels spiritually, emotionally, physically. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how has your personal struggles and triumphs influenced your decision to be who you are in your career now?
Well, it was actually in the early 80s when I was completing my master's degree in counseling. I was attending a seminary, and we would have like daily chapel. And so I was sitting in chapel, and the speaker was saying, well, with Jesus, you're never alone. And I remember in my mind, Karen, I said to myself, well, with Jesus, if I'm never alone, why the hell do I feel so alone? And I got up and I walked out of the chapel and I walked outside, and one of the professors of counseling was out there, and I said to him, I need to talk to you. And that was the beginning of my self-discovery in the therapeutic process. That's really what started me on the path that I'm on professionally. I was in education, but I also stayed and got an additional master's in counseling. And so I actually was in ministry for about 13 years doing both. I had developed some counseling centers, and I was doing a lot of workshops and teaching. So that's really what brought me into the field professionally. And then I'm an ongoing learner. I am curious. I am always wanting to improve myself and improve my work. So I'm just an ongoing student. And so here I am still doing and loving my work. I'm just amazed.
That's beautiful. So when you have a client that maybe has a crisis in faith, feeling alone, like you mentioned that you experience, how do you instill hope in them?
I believe that we have been created with the internal resources that we need to heal.
I believe that too. Yeah.
Pardon?
I believe that as well.
Absolutely. I believe that we have inside of ourselves the intuition, the instinct to know what we need.
Mm-hmm.
We may not understand specifically how to do that, but if we follow that, we can find external resources to support that. So I believe that part of it is being able to trust I can heal, I can grow through this, I can recover, I can be happy again, I can find peace, I can find contentment. And the other piece that I think that is so important is to recognize that regardless of our life experiences, we are exquisitely valuable. And we are worthy of happiness. We are worthy of healing. We are worthy of joy. We are worthy of health. It is there for us if we seek to know that and to seek the insight and the guidance to move our life forward and to move beyond trauma and loss and hurt and suffering. It's inside of us. That wisdom is inside of us.
How did it get there? That sounded very spiritual to me.
Oh, yeah, I guess it kind of is. If you frame it that way, but I don't think you have to frame it that way. I really believe that we are an expression and a manifestation of, call it God or source or the universe, whatever you might understand as that place from which we came, is love. And that we were magnificently created. I don't understand all of that, but I know that we're here. And I know as I work with people, I am always amazed at their creativity, their capacity for insight, their ability to problem solve and strategize. I mean, we're amazing creatures. We really, really are. Even when we're wounded and frightened, shamed, whatever it is, we're amazing. And so part of the journey is being able to authentically connect with that. I call it connecting with the soul's blueprint. I believe that we came with an internal blueprint inside of us in this journey that is about how we are supposed to express ourselves uniquely, and that our journey here is to discover that and to enjoy it.
That's beautifully said. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned your book. Are there other books along your path that have inspired you or have been your favorites on your path to healing? Any book recommendations, basically?
Oh, wow. I'm always reading. I tell you the one that I'm enjoying right now, I believe it was published several years ago, but it's called Atomic Habits.
Oh, that's a great book. Yeah.
It really, I've read a lot of books on changing behavior, getting freed from stuck. But I have to say that this is, to date, is the most comprehensive book I have seen on the topic. And it's so well written. I find myself reading it and marking it and then just noodling on it, and thinking about it. So I would definitely recommend that as an excellent resource when you're ready to make changes and you want to figure out how to do that with the least resistance, which I love. It's like, make it easy, make it as easy as possible. Who doesn't want to hear that, right?
Right.
So, yeah. And, he's so compassionate. He's very scientific in his presentation, but very compassionate in presenting the message that our capacity to change has very little to do with willpower.
Exactly.
Very little to do with willpower. And I love that, because we're so inclined to say, I should just be able to pull myself up with my bootstraps, and I should be able to, push my way through this, and I should be able to make this happen. And no. It's really about compassionately understanding how our mind and our body and our heart works together, our nervous system, and really honoring that, and making choices that are as gentle as possible to create change. So yeah, I'm loving the book.
That's awesome. I love that book as well. So I'm glad that you mentioned it.
How
Is
about
there
you?
any other?
What's your favorite book right now?
Oh, I don't know if I want to answer right now. I think my favorite book of all time is called, I'm not loving the title per se, but it's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
I was going to say Viktor Frankl's book. Yes.
That book is so inspirational to me.
Yes.
It still blows me away. Like, it was like, you know how they say the mic drop? I almost dropped the book when he was talking about how he was able to be an inspiration. He didn't use those words. Those are my words. But basically, despite the fact that his family was, getting killed and in the ovens, he was able to be present despite his own body. He was malnourished and infested with bugs, and he just was having a horrible time. Despite that, he knew they couldn't take his mind, and he used his mind to be able to help his fellow humans. He's like, they cannot control my mind. I just thought that was the best book ever. I'm never going to pick another book to be my favorite, I don't think, but that's one of my favorite books. And then in terms of my therapy practice, the most consistent books I use is the Feeling Good Handbook by David Burns.
Yes.
It's full of CBT exercises.
Yeah.
And then the Bible for, I hope that's not too sacrilegious, the Bible for Anxiety is the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook. My clients.
I haven't heard of that. Excellent.
It's a classic too. It's older, but it helps in therapy, we see a lot of people suffering from anxiety. So that book is a really helpful handbook or workbook for sufferers of anxiety. So those are my favorites. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I know I'm being interviewed, but I was just curious.
No one's asked me, so thank you. You're my first guest who's asked me that, so thank you. I actually have many more favorites, but I could do a million shows on that.
Yeah.
I love to read.
Me too.
Yeah. So what do you do? Like, this work you do it can be heavy at times, right? Even though you have a very joyful, playful, peaceful presence about you, I know there's things that you hear that are hard. So how do you take care of yourself when you're doing this work?
That is a really good question, Karen, because I've been doing this now for over 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I think statistically, the average life of a psychotherapist is like 7 years. It may have changed recently, but it used to be a pretty short lifespan because it can be challenging. We have the honor, you and I have the honor of going into the deepest, darkest places inside of people's life experience. Mm-hmm. And we hear things and know things, and we come alongside them in their story, things that are heartbreaking and tragic and horrible and unfair. And we listen to that. We listen to that, and we're present with them in that. And one of the best pieces of advice that a professor gave me a very long time ago, was when you're working with a client, sometimes it's like reaching down into a deep, dark well. And you reach down and you take their hand to help them come up. But you cannot help them if you jump into the well.
Ooh, that is powerful.
And I learned to never jump into the well.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that I can be fully present I can be fully present and I can be compassionate and empathetic without taking on their fear or their suffering. Because I'm here to help them be able to attend to that, to hold that for them until they can hold that in themselves without fear and without suffering. And you and I know that the work of trauma is really to be able to remember the trauma, to remember the pain in the trauma, to remember the experience and details of the trauma without reliving the suffering. Like, yeah, I remember that fear, and I remember that shame, and I remember that helplessness, and I remember that rage. I remember all of that, but I no longer suffer in it because it's part of my memory. And I choose now to live my life where I'm meant to live it now, which is in a peaceful, joyful, contented place. So for me, the priority is really staying alert and attuned to how to be present in the process. It's also about my self-care.
Right.
I mean, in very practical terms, I see my chiropractor, I see my massage therapist, I see my trainer every week. I work out consistently every day. I do a little bit of exercise. I eat well. I have an anti-inflammatory diet to support my body in being pain-free and flexible. I gather around me genuinely, authentically supportive people who are there, who love me and like me and appreciate me and respect me. Those are the people that I attract into my life, and those are the relationships that I cultivate. I believe that play is really important. I have a lot of love for otters. That's sort of my...
I wasn't expecting that.
You weren't. I guess you call it my Native American spirit guide is otter energy. I have a lot of otter energy in me. So I believe that that's really important because play and nurturance and all of that is really a part of who I am. And so I really attend to that and I appreciate that. I think living in a place of gratitude for all that is good in my life, even in the difficult times. And I can tell you, particularly in the last decade, I had been married to Ken for 25 years, and to watch him decline from the man that he was when I met him, that's a difficult journey. And so I really have had a focus in my life daily of being grateful for all the good, for all the good. And when we really stop, even when we're in pain, when we're in grief, when we're facing challenges, to stop and acknowledge the things that we can be grateful for, it's a good thing. It's a supportive thing for ourselves. So those are the ways that I care for myself and support myself in order to be able to do what I do.
Great. my favorite thing that you said, the favorite thing that you said was play.
Uh-huh.
And that my way to play is reading a lot, but also traveling. Are you a travel buff as well?
I love to travel. Yes.
It's my favorite way to play. Yeah. And in fact, I think what I love about travel, I think for trauma survivors, it can be very healing to go on journeys and have self-discovery and connect to new people, new cultures. So I just wanted to put that out there too. When you said play, I was like, oh, yay, this is a good area. Because I think one of the issues with trauma survivors is it can be before they start healing. The healing journey is a lot of self-punishment and not taking time to play. And part of healing is being okay and embracing play.
And, sometimes even if we have people around us who are suffering, it's sometimes hard for us to allow ourselves to play or to be happy or to heal. Yeah. And yet it's so important because, we can't be sick enough to support someone else in getting healed. We can't be unhealthy enough to help someone get healthy. Like we have to be able to discover and have a vision of our highest and best, and to say, how can I show up today in the best version of myself, even as I'm healing, even as I am in this challenge or this struggle, how do I show up from the best parts of myself today? And there is something about that potentially includes play and includes, for me, a close second to play is curiosity. It's being curious, asking questions, discovering, like you said, and travel is a wonderful way to do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, as we start to wrap up, I really want to make sure that we squeeze all the goodness we can out of you, which is, impossible in a 30-minute podcast. But what other tidbits do you have that instills hope into your clients? Like if you had a few remaining words of wisdom to survivors, what are they?
Words of wisdom to survivors. Don't try to do it alone. Healing only really occurs in the context of relationship. In relationship to ourselves, but also in relationship to others. And to be able to have someone in your life, either professionally or personally, that is there who can listen and come alongside of you without jumping in the well or being quick to advise you or to try to minimize what's going on, but can just be with you. This can be a powerful healing opportunity. So I would say don't suffer in isolation. Don't suffer in isolation. Reach out.
Susie, that was really beautiful. There's a lot to be said about having community, having support people that are not toxic, that are healthy, having your own therapist, your own coach, your own support group, whatever it is. Community is huge for healing. They always say 2 brains are better than 1, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 brains are even better than 1. So
absolutely. And if you add to those brains the heart, yeah,
mind-blowing the wisdom that would be available to you.
Say what?
It's mind-blowing how much wisdom can become available to you.
Yes, and we never know I'm always open to unexpected resources, unexpected relationships, someone who might come into my life and bring me an insight, a blessing, a moment of appreciation and connection. I'm always open to that there are any number of ways that goodness in life can come to us.
Yeah. Oh, Susie, it's been a real pleasure having you here with us today. I hope you stay in touch, and whenever you have anything exciting coming up, that you let us know so we can let our audience know what new things that you're doing. Okay.
Thank you. I would love to do that. Thank you again for the honor, and a thank you to your audience, to your listeners that are really seeking ongoing support through your podcast, and that they find this to be a place of refuge for them, and you are to be honored in offering that to them. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that today.
Okay, I appreciate that. Take care of you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.